Okay. I'll start over. I call the Area Board of Zoning Appeals March 26, 2025 public hearing meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the roll call.
Steve Clevenger,
Present.
Gary Schroeder,
Present.
Tim Vanderplatz, Robert Novak,
Present.
Brett Halberg,
Present.
Ed Butts,
Present.
Rabita Rajkanikar. Quorum present.
Thank you. And I'll take a motion for the approval of the minutes for the last meeting.
I move to approve the minutes from the February 26, 2025 ABZA public hearing as submitted.
I second.
Motion and a second. Any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. New business.
All right, well, we have two continuances, BZA 2181. Petitioners requested to be moved to May 28. This would be the second continuance, I think. Yeah. So they'll have to be heard at May or withdraw or be dismissed. So, and then BZA 2186, petitioners requested to move to April's meeting, April 23rd. We also have two cases that have not checked in all of their paperwork. That's BZA 2184 and BZA 2187. That's Kevin Kiepp and Hovarth Towers respectively. If there's anyone in the audience that's representing that case that has that paperwork, please come up and see Nathan. Otherwise, when we get to those cases, if they have not checked in yet, I would ask to you move them to the end, and then we'll give them every chance to
Right.
get here. So, other than that, the remaining cases are good to go.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and take the public hearing motion, please.
I move that there be incorporated into the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and to become part of the evidence at such hearing, the Unified Zoning Ordinance, the Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, the application and all documents filed therewith, the staff report and recommendations on the applications to be heard this evening, and responses from the checkpoint agencies.
I second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'd like to briefly describe our procedures for tonight's meeting. Each case will be heard following a motion and a second from the board. We'll ask the staff to report on its findings. Following the staff report, we'll ask the petitioner to present his or her case, after which anyone wishing to support the petitioner's request for a variance or special exception will be asked to come forward. After hearing from the petitioner and those speaking on his or her behalf, we will ask those speaking against the petition to present their arguments. The petitioner will then be allowed to rebut arguments raised by those in opposition to his or her petition. Following the rebuttal, the board may wish to ask questions of the petitioner, supporters, and opponents of the petition or of the staff. The staff will have the opportunity at this time to make any necessary clarifying comments. We will then vote by use of a prescribed ballot. 4 votes are necessary to make any decision. In the absence of 4 votes, either for or against, the petition is automatically continued to the next meeting. Please observe the following guidelines for the sake of time and fairness to all. State your name and address for the record before you speak. If you're not the petitioner, please sign the notepad on the staff desk. Limit your remarks to 5 minutes or less. Do not repeat arguments that have been brought up by others. Remember that all visual aids used to support your arguments will remain the property of the board. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. Please step out of the room before using your cell phone. And with that in mind, I'll have the continuances.
I move to continue BZA 2181, Todd A. Tucker and Jill E. Tucker, trustee, to the May 28th ABZA public hearing agenda, and BZA 2186, Genoa Salami LLC, to the April 23rd public agenda.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. If you are here for BZA 2181, Todd A. Tucker and Jill E. Tucker, trustee, or for BZA 2186, Genoa Salami LLC, those will be heard at, what was that? Oh. Those will be heard at the May 28th for the first one and April 23rd, our next meeting, for the second one. I will go ahead and hear our first case.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2178, Dylan Dempsey, Carlson Consulting Engineers petitioner, with the consent of the owner, Walmart Real Estate Business Trust, is requesting a variance to reduce the required parking standard for a general merchandise store from a previously granted variance BZA 2102, minimum ratio of 0.8 spaces per 200 square feet of gross floor area to 0.7 spaces per 200 square feet of gross floor area. The site currently provides 899 spaces. The reduction in parking would allow the construction of a gas station convenience store on site. The 25.52 acre subject site is located on the corner of Sagamore Parkway and Cumberland Avenue, specifically 2801 Northwestern Avenue, West Lafayette, Wabash 12, Northwest 23-5, UZO 4-6-3, continued from the February 26, 2025 ABZA meeting by inconclusive vote.
Second.
Motion and a second. We'll hear from staff, please. Nathan?
Evening, everybody. Nathan McBurnett, APC staff. As Robert said, this case was continued from last month due to an inconclusive vote, and there's an even number of you here today, so that'll be fun. We are here at the corner of Cumberland and Sagamore Parkway, Celery Bog there to the west. We've got a multifamily development that's currently under development to the south of this site. Here is a shot of the proposed site plan. Up there in the top, what is that, the northeast corner of the site is where this is proposed. Nothing has changed about the petition since last meeting. A few, I guess, points to talk about it, just a closer up image of that site plan. Some proposed conditions along the public right-of-way here along Cumberland. This has been in discussion with the West Lafayette Traffic Commission. This site plan would come in the form of a commitment, so having just a right-in, right-out at where that Slim Chickens entrance is just now. And then further to the southwest, installing a light there to kind of help with traffic circulation and existing congestion problems in this area of the city. In addition to that site plan, APC staff is proposing some extra conditions. The red line up there at the top, we're proposing that a sidewalk or a path be made to the site to increase pedestrian accessibility, acknowledging that convenience stores are just as popular among pedestrians as they are, people who are driving. And then we have a preference for the convenience store to be in the middle of the site rather than on the eastern extent. This follows the kind of model that we've seen in town elsewhere. I know last meeting petitioner mentioned that they were not interested in moving it to the middle of the site, but staff's opinion is not changed. Some shots of the site. And just to review, currently on site is 899 parking spots, and the proposed with the gas station would be 804. This includes the proposed parking spots at the gas station, so that's a net total of 804. And looking over the tests, again, staff is not in support of this variance, recommending denial. Our main concerns have to do with the potential pedestrian conflicts. So specifically along the main aisle, we're anticipating that people who are using the convenience store would likely park in the main sort of parking lot for the grocery store and cross that main traffic aisle, creating those conflicts. So although we have gotten a new site, last meeting we got a new site plan that kind of addressed some concerns, we think the central concern for staff is the pedestrian conflicts, and that has not been addressed. So staff is recommending denial. Thank you.
Thank you. Petitioner or his or her representative.
Good evening. Dylan Dempsey with Carlson Consulting Engineers. I guess just speaking on the project again, the concerns that staff presents with pedestrian, mainly with the traffic improvements that are being proposed, we are directing most of that pedestrian traffic to the western entrance of the site. That would become a signalized intersection, which would allow crossing of Cumberland Avenue, which doesn't exist today at a signalized intersection. Also to reiterate is Walmart's intention is to keep the site where it's currently shown, not to relocate it to the center. We see that more of a pedestrian hazard being centralized on the site. If there was an out parcel there, we might consider that, but given that there is a wetland there, there's no easy way for that to be relocated based on Walmart's decisions. The sidewalk that is being requested from staff, we do not have issue with. Walmart would be more than happy to do that. And any of the improvements along Cumberland will have to go through West Lafayette City's approval prior to issuing, so they'll review all the plans to make sure that they meet their standards prior to the site being approved. But if there's any additional questions or comments you have, I'm more than happy to answer them.
We may have some for you in a minute.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the petition? Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Peter Bunder, and I live at 701 North Chauncey Avenue in West Lafayette. And my reason for being here takes us back at least until 2008. My first ordinance as a member of the West Lafayette City Council created our Environmental Commission, and it's out of that interest that I address you this evening. This is a review, I think, of the history of that site. Back in the days of Sonia Marjoram and Jan Mills, there was no Walmart there, and there was a conversation about whether or not there should be. Why? Because the city was eager to make Celery Bog something, to make it a recreational joy for the city of West Lafayette. When the Walmart came in, it came in without an auto center. Do you remember that? No auto center. Eventually, corporate said, we need an auto center. So there was a negotiation of sorts. Jan Mills got more land, and Walmart got the auto center. Now we're here at a gas station. The same objections that were raised initially to putting Walmart there and then putting the auto center there remain. Can you protect the Celery Bog? Is that worth protecting? I would argue that there's no reason for another gas station. Tony Rosaworski is right. And there's certainly no reason to put a gas station by Celery Bog. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you could sign the, thank you. Anyone else in opposition to the petition?
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on this issue. My name is Sage Sacamano. I live at 2081 Morehouse Road in West Lafayette. and I'm a doctoral student in environmental and ecological engineering at Purdue. My research focuses on environmental contamination and mitigation strategies, and I'm here today to express my concerns regarding this proposal. Walmart's request for zoning variance is unnecessary and profit-driven attempt to bypass existing regulations in order to construct a gas station. The current ordinance mandates a parking lot of this size to accommodate the already massive store, one that was controversially built, as was already mentioned, in the mid-1990s. Granting this variance would further undermine zoning laws designed to protect community planning and environmental integrity, prioritizing corporate interests over responsible land use. Approving this rezoning variance to allow a gas station near the protective Celery Bog wildlife area is both unnecessary and environmentally hazardous. As mentioned, West Lafayette already has 11 gas stations, with 8 located within a 5-minute drive from Walmart where the plan is proposed. Our community has more than enough access to fuel. Alarmingly, at least 6 of these stations are already listed on the Indiana Department of Environmental Management's LUST report, or leaking underground storage tanks, demonstrating the environmental hazards gas station pose. These leaks contaminate soil, surface water, and groundwater. In a wetland environment like the Celery Bog, such contamination can spread very rapidly, potentially destroying habitats and poisoning the wildlife. If such risks exist in less sensitive areas, placing a gas station near the Celery Bog, a fragile wetland ecosystem, could be disastrous. It's simply redundant at this point. The Celery Bog is recognized as one of Indiana's significant ecological sites by the Indiana Natural Heritage Program. It supports over 260 bird species and provides a vital habitat for diverse wildlife. Contaminants from a gas station, whether from leaks, spills, or stormwater runoff, could spread rapidly in the wetland environment, endangering both wildlife and water quality. The Celery Bog, as many of you probably know, is one of the most loved areas in West Lafayette by community members and visitors alike. Beyond environmental concerns, the gas station would disrupt the recreational value of Celery Bog. Its 4.3 miles of paved trails and 1.5 miles of footpaths provide a peaceful space for the community. Moreover, if the area was contaminated, it would diminish the recreational value for community members who use it, like myself. If, despite all logical arguments against this project, it were to proceed, I would hope that more stringent controls would be requested, such as a site-specific spill prevention control and countermeasure, SPCC, plan with frequent updates and staff training, more rigorous record-keeping and reporting requirements, advanced vapor recovery systems to minimize air pollution, additional secondary containment systems, state-of-the-art underground storage tanks with double-wall construction, and a comprehensive emergency response plan for potential spills and leaks. Another potential alternative to minimize environmental risks, if you do happen to choose to grant Walmart this variance, is to require the installation of above-ground storage tanks. This approach would allow for easier inspection and maintenance, reducing the likelihood of undetected leaks, although they're still likely to happen. Purdue University implemented this strategy on its own fleet fueling station. While these stringent controls may help mitigate some impact, significant ecological threats would still persist. Given these risks, along with the additional costs associated with stringent controls, I strongly urge you to deny this rezoning variance to protect our environment and community. If there's a genuine need for more gas stations, which seems unlikely given the current number, we should consider alternative locations that don't threaten our precious ecosystems. The Celery Bog is a treasure that once lost cannot be replaced. Approving this rezoning variance would set a dangerous precedent, prioritizing corporate interests over environmental protection and responsible land use. Therefore, I urge you to uphold the existing zoning regulations for the benefit of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Wishing to speak in opposition to the petition.
Hello, my name is Natalia Bartos. I'm the city engineer for West Lafayette. I am here on behalf of the city, neither for or against this variance, but I do just want to express the city's support of the traffic and pedestrian improvements on, thank you, on Cumberland Avenue. As we all may know, Cumberland is quite congested currently, and these improvements, including the signalized intersection at the west access, having a right-in, right-out at the east access, together with some signage for pedestrian crossings, we believe that through what the developer has shown us through their traffic impact study, that congestion will be improved. It's not going to be perfect, but we support these improvements in the interim while we, gather some funding for a future project down the road to widen Cumberland. And yeah, we're just supportive of these improvements on Cumberland. So thank you.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition? If not, Dylan, you have a chance to rebut.
I guess in regards to some of the environmental concerns, I can't speak on that. I will say that this site would be reducing the amount of impervious area and actually adding more green space around the site than what is there today in the parking lot. But beyond that, I can just answer any additional questions you may have. I can't speak into the environmental impacts as I'm unaware of what those would be.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments from the board?
I have a question. Dylan,
Yes, sir.
in regard to the tanks that were mentioned, can you describe the setup, the tanks? Are they double-walled tanks? Are they? Can you
I just know
describe-
that they're underground storage tanks. They're your standard you would see at most fuel stations.
Okay. But you don't know if they're state-of-the-art tanks that are going to prevent leakage?
I do know that they do what they're supposed to do in terms of making sure that they meet the leakage requirements per the city code.
Okay. And how does Walmart track any potential leaks? How do they investigate that, inspect it, or is that?
They do have an operation and maintenance manual that they issue, and that's required upon completion of the installation that lasts over a certain amount of years as well.
And one more question regarding pedestrian traffic. The APC staff is not in support of this because of the pedestrian traffic issue. How does the plan that you have alleviate their concerns? It doesn't seem like it does, but what is your take on that?
Yeah, I guess the main concern is pedestrian traffic coming from that eastern entrance. And today it is pretty much a full access entrance. So you have people coming that way from Cumberland, from the west and the east. Really adding that signalized intersection at the western entrance where there already is a sidewalk path to the existing city bus station or access point right there on our site would kind of channel everything to that western side. So you have a signalized intersection with crosswalks across Cumberland that there is no signalized access today. So also making that a right in, right out, you kind of are directing pedestrians towards that western entrance. We would add that sidewalk as needed to allow access to our site from that eastern access, but I believe that the western access would be more the focal point, and it's in line with the existing bus travel point.
Okay. And is Walmart in opposition to adding that sidewalk along the entrance that the staff recommended?
They are not opposed to that,
They're
no.
not opposed to that? Okay.
I guess somebody coming from Sagamore Parkway wanting to go to the convenience store is probably not going to walk all the way to the stoplight and then walk all the way back to the convenience store. They're going to take the closest route, and if that sidewalk's not there, then, if the sidewalk's there, you're going to have the pedestrian conflicts. You're still going to have pedestrian conflicts if anybody comes in to the western, because they've got to cross all the way over through the parking lot, not just the small section of that main route. They still have to cross that. So it's directing people to that western entrance, I don't think is going to solve that problem. We did have two conditions that we did approve at the last meeting, and I think we probably ought to reapprove those. One was to, and I think the first one's really a commitment rather than a condition about the traffic. And then the second one, I guess both of them are really commitments rather than conditions. And the second one was the sidewalk. If we want to re-add those, just to,
So you'd be looking for a motion to take the two commitments that were provided at the last hearing on the same petition, plus the one spoken about tonight with the sidewalk as delineated on the map in the report.
the sidewalk was the one, we did not approve the motion to move the site, but we did approve a motion to require the sidewalk.
Was that one of the two?
That was one of the two.
Is there a third one?
There was not a third one, no.
And there is no third one that you're asking for a motion on?
Correct.
Okay, I misunderstood. So it would be a motion to ratify the two conditions that were previously voted in at the last hearing of this matter.
I found those in the notes, Steve, at least the first one,
Okay.
and I'll make that motion. I move that the petitioner receive approval from the city for vehicular and pedestrian traffic, and when approved, the final plan shall be submitted to the Area Plan Commission. And maybe along with that, I think that covers it. The vehicular and pedestrian traffic would cover the sidewalk.
Okay. And so we have a motion, and we have a second.
I second.
I'll second that.
Any comments on that, and is that acceptable to you? So it's the traffic on Cumberland, those modifications that you agreed to last time, and then also the sidewalk on the eastern entrance.
Understood, and just to be clear, the submittal to the ABA staff is just to show you the site plan to show that it was implemented. It's not another meeting submittal, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just want
Yeah,
to verify.
there won't be another meeting unless you come back for some other reason. We have a motion on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Those two commitments are added to the petition. Any other comments
I
or
have
questions?
one more question for the city engineer. We talked a lot about sidewalk improvements and also adding a traffic light. What kind of cost share are we looking at in terms of improvement for those particular items? Is it completely covered by Walmart?
That is my understanding.
I believe Walmart's committed to doing them if it is fully through Walmart, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I have a
Robert.
question. Could we please have the slide that showed the Cumberland improvements? In the parking lot by the gas station, there's like a black diagonal addition. Is that going to be like a curb? So if you came in the west entrance, you turned left and you were traveling east, you would be forced to turn right then?
No, that's not a curb, sorry. That's issues with the hatching it's really a saw cut going just for a utility connection. That's all going to be, it's not an additional curb or anything like that.
Okay, so that, you'd still be able to go straight towards the gas
Correct,
station?
yeah, it's still going to be a four-way intersection.
What is your anticipated car count per day at the gas station?
I do not have that information off the top of my head.
If this was approved, this would be the largest gas station in West Lafayette based on the number of gas pumps. Yeah, right now you're showing 5 islands, 2 pumps per island. That would be 10 pumps, 20, because you could go on each side. You don't have any idea of what it's going to be?
It's only 10 pumps, sir, not 20.
10 pumps, you could go ahead and fuel on each side.
Correct,
So you-
so there's 5 stations and then 1 on each side, so it'd be 10 total, not 20. There's not 2, they're not stacked like you would see at like the Sam's.
There's 5 islands with 2 pumps at each island. So that would be 10 pumps, and you could go on each side. So you have 20 fueling positions, correct?
No, we have 10 fueling positions, sir. That's just the way the columns are set up, but it is actually 10 fueling positions.
Pumps are between the columns.
Correct.
The what?
The spaces between the columns. There's 5.
So-
Okay.
There's 2 on each side.
So those are the actual rectangles there, the dark rectangles are columns supporting the canopy, and that there's a single pump between the columns that has it's 2 nozzles, 1 on each side.
10 total.
So it's 10 total. I mistook that too. So-
Well, that's why we ask questions, I guess.
Exactly.
So basically, I would assume once the Cumberland Road improvements are placed, the majority of your traffic is going to be coming in through the west entrance, is that correct?
That is correct.
And then, pretty much for the gas station, they'll all be making an immediate left turn to come through that area rather than go all the way down by the store.
Ideally, yes.
Coming through that one intersection right there between the entrance, the exit, the east entrance. That is going to be a lot of traffic going back and forth. Is that going to be controlled by stop signs, or is that going to be an uncontrolled area?
Yes, there will be additional signage added with the approval from the city in terms of plans. We will add additional pedestrian crossing signage and as well as additional stop signs.
So will it be four-way or two? And I don't mean to berate you, but this is very important because you're going to have a lot of cars going that way.
It is a four-way intersection, so you have traffic left and right and up and down.
But is the stop signs going to be four ways or just?
Yes, there will be stop signs all four
All right.
ways.
Because that's an awful lot of cars traveling all the way across versus if you would have put it in the middle, but that's your call. What is your sign package for this? I noticed you didn't make for a new thing, are you going to be taking down Walmart signs to put gas station signs up?
That is for the architect to handle. We're doing the variance, so the signage will be coming through a separate permit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Follow-up question, please. It was something that Robert had mentioned about how many vehicles will be traveling through the parking lot to the gas station. I realized there was a traffic impact study that was done.
Correct. I'm saying, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head
Yeah.
per going towards the gas station. I do know that with the traffic improvements, those do include the gas station in those counts. And so existing today, it was at an F grade, and with the traffic improvements, in addition to the gas station, it did improve to a C or D grade.
Okay.
And we do have the city
Yeah,
engineer here. You don't have to-
I have the traffic study pulled up. So the new trips generated, because of the gas station, they're anticipating 844 daily trips. So there are 1,400 primary trips, which I believe it would mean just for the Walmart. And then an additional 844 for the gas station. So there's some overlap there, going to Walmart and then going to the fuel station as well.
Natalia, is it possible to estimate how many of those trips will be existing Walmart trips to the gas station as opposed to just the gas station itself? Has that been?
That has been. I just have to look at this data again and just get that correct
Okay, yeah.
number. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
I have one last question
Go ahead,
about the
Nabita.
signage. I want to piggyback on what was discussed about the signage. So for this site, maybe staff can help. How much signage can this building have?
If I'm remembering correctly, staff reached out about signage to see if there'd be any additional, and we were not told that there would be any additional signage.
Okay.
So a sign worksheet was not completed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Not, we've got a ballot. Thank you.
There were 6 ballots cast, 4 in favor, 2 against.
Variance has been granted. And we'll hear our next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2182 Skeege Enterprises Incorporated. Petitioner Skeege Enterprises Incorporated, represented by Chris Shellman of Gutwein Law, and at the consent of owner Scott Loads, is requesting a variance to reduce the parking spaces for a multifamily subdivision, the W, from the minimum required 576 spaces to 468 spaces. The 9.994 acre site, zoned R3, is located east of the intersection of West 250 North and North 400 West, commonly known as 3466 West 250 North, Wabash 10, Northeast 23-5, UZO 2-8-11.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. We'll hear from staff. Ryan, please.
All right, well, here's the vicinity. As we say in our report, it is kind of a patchwork quilt of zones. We've got, commercial, industrial, light industrial, all manner of residential, and even some ag in the vicinity. You see the site's kind of tucked back here off of the County Road 250 North. Here's a look at the existing conditions. It's a greenfield site, not much going on apart from the ag uses. We'll go ahead and show their proposal. The rezones were achieved in 24, which we stated in the report. Staff was against those, and our opinions on their variance petitions kind of follow suit. It's basically just far out, in our opinion, for multifamily. It's county road there's no plans to improve it. It's a narrow county road with no shoulders, no sidewalks. City bus does not have a presence in this area. And to have a dense multifamily development out in this fringe area is just irresponsible in staff's opinion, because there's going to be people that are going to be walking. The bus does go to Klondike, and so that's tempting for some if they want to risk their lives. And so unless we're issuing yellow vests with lighted helmets. So our opinion in here is, because of this situation of the condition of the county road and the lack of transit service, having multifamily here is just premature at best. So in our opinion, the impact to the public health, safety, and welfare is rooted in what I just said. This is going to attract people to want to try to walk out there. Not everyone's going to have a road, especially if students are going to be living in here. There's no guarantee that they can't say everyone's going to have a car, everyone's going to drive. Yeah, maybe a lot of them are, but there's going to be some that don't. And it creates enough doubt to be concerned, in staff's opinion. Also, the parking, the reduction in parking is also part of the package. They're trying to reduce the parking because they don't think they need it. If these people aren't driving, are they carpooling? There's no bus service. How are they going to get to where they're going to get? The parking requirement is there to make sure that there is enough space. And so that is a concern for us as well. There's absolutely nothing unusual about this property. It's a greenfield site. So this situation is common if any other off the beaten path sites that somehow manage to get R3 zoning. There's nothing unusual that would necessitate these variances from a hardship perspective. And as such, a simple redesign of the project to fit the ordinance would do the trick. They got the zoning, but now they're trying to up the ante by allowing for increased density, lower parking, the things we do in urban environments. This ain't urban. So we believe this hardship is self-imposed, and there is no minimum relief, so we are recommending denial. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ryan. Petitioner or petitioner's representative.
Thank you.
Chris?
Good evening.
Yep.
Chris Shellman of Gutwein Law, 250 Main Street. Ultimately, this is a companion request. It's the R3 multifamily component is part of a larger development, which will have shared common amenities. Couple key items that we want to hit here is we certainly believe that the request, the City of Lafayette standard, is the suburban development standard. We think that'll more than adequately serve the site. Most of the units, 60%, are studios and one-bed units. There are only 102 two-beds and 18 three-bed units. So we're providing well over one space per bedroom, and will more than adequately serve the automotive need. And directly addressing the staff's concern about bus and pedestrian access, that is in the works. On this site, you can see just west of the clubhouse, we've already reached out to City Bus, and we have a full bus stop planned for the community, which will serve both the R2 and R3 sections. And we're also in contact with the Highway Department about the road and pedestrian transportation along the frontage and ultimately out to Klondike. Those things are in the works. This is a large development. It will take several years to complete. And the plan is to work in conjunction with the county and foster the development of 250. That is the future for this, and we're going to be the first step in working with the county to redevelop that. Be happy to answer any specific questions, but ultimately this will provide for additional green space, preserving some trees, and more amenities for the residents on site while still meeting the parking needs.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the petition? Comments, questions from the board?
I had a clarification from, and maybe you said it and I missed that, Chris, I'm sorry. How many beds are there on this project?
Beds, there are, I've got that number right here, 426 beds. And 174 of them are one-bed and studio units.
Okay, thank you.
The R2 companion, for whatever it's worth, all have driveways and two-car garages. So we don't envision any carryover.
It's private drives too, so it's narrow roads.
Correct.
I'm assuming no parking on those.
Correct.
On those roads, so you couldn't overflow on those if you needed to. I mean, I know at APC you said this as well, but I mean, how are the talks with City Bus and with the county highway? Do we have any ideas of what their plans and what their timetables would be?
Don't know timetable. Nigel might be able to talk about plans for the trail and road cross-section. I know that's coming. We're in talks with City Bus. We'll be installing that in extension. And I know that bus service is important to the development. And to the extent that City Bus, those talks and discussions would fall down, they're certainly going to provide additional bus service to popular routes. Others have hired out City Bus on private routes, and there's other communities that provide additional bus transportation, but that would certainly be a stopgap measure until those were furthered.
Yes. I do drive that, multiple times a week, and I do run into, not literally, but there are pedestrians that do walk and
Sure.
bicyclists. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, I was driving and there was a bicyclist at night with no lights on. And it just happened that I saw the reflectors on the bike that, I didn't hit whoever it was, but they were turning into Lindbergh Village. And another concern is I know that there's plans for a convenience store gas station there at the corner of Klondike and 250 that, if there's not a path that is, or sidewalk that links to Klondike, that you're going to have more people, not just from your development, but from Lindbergh Village as well, walking down the middle of 250 to that convenience store. And I don't have concerns about that.
Nigel, do you want to have any updates from the highway department or what your thoughts were?
If you have any information that, on potential, I'd be happy to hear it.
Yeah, Nigel Hensley with Kinley Horn. Our office is at 101 Foundry Drive, West Lafayette, Indiana. The talks that we've had with the county highway is that they are going to improve the road in some capacity. What that section is, they haven't shared with us yet. I believe they're probably in a planning stage, but they did ask us to add those right turn lanes in front of the development, and they've asked us not to continue the sidewalks to the west or east in anticipation of the future improvements. Pretty much don't install the sidewalks if we're just going to tear it out in the future. So as far as we understand, there is going to be future widening of County Road 250 North. And that's the understanding that we have right now.
The sidewalks will go to nowhere anyway, so. Any other comments or questions?
Question, I'm reading the staff report, maybe for staff. The report says there's 400, what does it say, 432 beds. And I think, did you say, Chris, there was 426? Not that that's a big difference, but.
I noticed that too. Which is it, Chris?
That was my math. I can run so I win. I can redo it real quick. I know we have 174 one-beds. That's 174 units. There are 102 two-beds. So 174 plus 102, this is a real live test. So 276 plus another two per unit. So is that what that is? Let me do the math here real quick. Make sure it's
Just want to make sure we don't need to make a correction.
So we have 2 times 102. That's 204 plus 3 times 18, 258 plus 1. 74, 432. Is that right? 432. Does that match yours, mine? That matches yours. I was wrong.
So it's still 288 on the unit count.
Yes, the unit count is still.
That's what we're measuring.
The unit count is 288. Correct. There's 18 plus 102 plus 96 plus 78.
Petition's accurate then?
The petition is accurate, okay.
At the unit count, which is all that matters.
And I guess another question. I believe the city bus taxing district goes out to approximately what would be 350. Is that correct? Do you know? Would they have to add to their taxing district?
I do not know offhand, but that did not bring that up when we reached out to talk about service.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's changed with Lindbergh Village, but I know before Lindbergh Village, I believe it used to go out, halfway between Klondike and 400.
So you believe it's within the taxing district?
I believe a part of the apartments are probably within the taxing district. The duplexes probably are not.
I can't verify that.
Yeah. But I'm not 100% sure either. Any other questions?
I'm still trying to wrap my mind around the parking issue
Okay.
and the standards, and knowing that when you get complexes away from walking distance, parking is very important, as we have seen in other complexes in the past. Probably can't remember out on, anyway. So maybe a question for staff, if you have any further comment about, 576, do you think that would be too many parking spaces? It's kind of hard to hit the target where you want enough, where you're not having issues with parking, but yet you don't want hard surface that, like we talk about in shopping centers, that just sit there and
Right.
won't be used. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around that.
Yeah, I think what I can say is that it's a standard that certainly has not given the community, put it in a bad situation, in terms of parking. It's just that this 2 per unit standard has been around a long time. Many complexes in the cities, in the counties have been built around it, and there's never been a parking issue, and so, that I'm aware of. There's usually plenty. And so, yeah, whether it should be trimmed, we even mention in our report about Lafayette's alternative standard, which, does bring it down a little bit. And they seem to have made the case, because they've had that standard for many years too, that, well, what's good for Lafayette might probably work everywhere else too, unless there's some special standard in a overlay or something like that, or a PD. So I think that's why we raised it, that we could certainly probably make the case that the Lafayette standard probably could be applied community-wide as a by right standard. And so, but certainly the 2 per unit is more than enough. And it's a fairly standard formula around the state, especially, and in even other college communities. I know Muncie's got the same. It's been a pretty proven safe standard. Does it go overboard? Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, you could certainly, find, but does it go way overboard? I won't think so. I think there's definitely spaces available, but it never fills up. And given this site's remote location, staff is kind of erring on the side of caution with this one. But we do reference the Lafayette standard as well. Maybe that there might be a case to be made for that.
It looks like they say 452, if I'm reading that right.
I think so.
And they're
yeah.
asking for 468, so they're above that. I just don't want to get to a community where we don't have enough parking and we turn into one of those communities. I know where that's been raised before.
Yeah,
So-
and we're certainly exploring that on the commercial side presently, for overparked big box stores, for example, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Another question for Petitioner Chris. Are these going to be rented by the bedroom, or are these going to be rented, by the unit?
By the unit.
By the unit, so that it's not aimed at students
No.
who would most likely
Correct. And the other thing
need
is
cars
that
that.
the density isn't being increased as a result of the variance. It's the same number of beds that will get built either way. It's just the green space that you see that runs along the west side of the property, and there's a patch of trees north of or just south of the detention pond that will turn into hard surface parking. That's the difference. But there will not be an increase in occupants.
And if this is approved, I really would like to see, something done, at least a trail or sidewalk or something put on the road, because I don't want to end up with another, Teal West where you've got people that are hit by cars, on a major road.
Certainly, and that's our intent, to help facilitate that as we can.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
If not, we've got a ballot.
6 ballots cast, 5 in favor, 1 against.
That variance has been approved. I'll take our next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2183, the Oasis Holding Incorporated. Petitioner and owner Oasis Holdings Incorporated, represented by Chris Shellman of Gutwein Law, is requesting a variance to increase the maximum sign area for the sign lot from an allotted 26 square feet to 64 square feet. The R3 zone property is Lot 2 of the Oasis subdivision, commonly known as 3579 Genoa Drive, Wabash 2, Northeast 23-5, UZO 4-8-5.
I second.
Motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please. Nathan?
All right, we're over here on Genoa Drive, just north of Sagamore Parkway. This is an area with a massive amount of residential development, by the way. It's kind of surprising seeing it all happening at once. The property that we're looking right now, it's a multifamily development that's currently under construction. It is right next to another development there to the west that we'll be hearing at next BZA, another multifamily development. Just a close-up of the site. The request is to increase the signage by about 2.5 times what it is. This is kind of a proposal of what that signage would be. It's just over about 50 square feet in surface area, so it is, staff thinks it's important to note that the only proposed sign that is included within this request is considerably under the total amount that they're requesting. So that part is not necessarily clear why they're requesting 64 square feet if they're only asking for a sign of 50 square feet. It's not super clear based on the elevation where specifically this sign would be located. What we're looking at is a plain view, but it's obviously three-dimensional. So staff took some pictures here. So that one on the furthest right, it's coming up from Sagamore, coming north. You can see the building in construction in the back. This is the property. We've got that one facade that's sort of bumped out, and then the rest is kind of L-shaped and it meanders around. So I would imagine that the sign, I'll let Chris speak more to it. It seems like the sign would be on that bumped out part. So the site already has kind of advantaged visibility compared to other sites in the area, given that it's on that curve. It's the first thing that you see when you're coming up Genoa Drive. So it's staged favorably compared to neighboring properties. Just some more pictures of the site. Just doing a little research on the area, other signs in the other properties in the area, none have sought variances for their signage. All of the signage on 3597 Paramount Drive, the Vibe, which is very similar, very close to this property and similar in size. They have a 40 square foot sign. 3680 Paramount Drive, which is to the northwest, a much larger property, has a 20 square foot sign. So what they're asking is higher than sort of what's been permitted in the area for properties of comparable size, properties of larger size. So staff does not support this variance request. Specifically, looking at the test number 4, this is a situation that is common to other R3 zone properties in the county. I guess the only thing that's unique about this site compared to neighboring sites is that it's not a corner lot. Right, so its signage allotment is lower than neighboring sites. Many of those neighboring sites have a larger allotment because they're on a corner, but it's by no means uncommon for R3 zone properties in general in the county. We believe that the hardship is self-imposed. Well, we don't believe that there's a non-self-imposed hardship, and part of the reason for that is the request is significantly higher than what the actual proposed sign is. So staff cannot support that and recommends denial. Thank you.
Thank you. Petitioner or petitioner's representative, Chris.
Thank you. Good evening. Chris Shellman, 250 Main Street. Nathan is correct on the location of the sign on the L shorter, bottom part of the L part of the building. I guess one clarification, there's no intent to build a sign that's bigger than the 50 square feet, but the 64 feet came from creating the 8x8 box. It's a circle. So it is 50 square feet of signage, but it's under the impression that the measurement of the sign was creating a 8x8 box around the circle. So if you take the square footage of a circle, the radius squared times pi, you get 50 square feet. But if you box a 8x8 circle, that's 64 square feet. So there's no intention to build more signage than that. So I don't know what the staff thinks the request should be, but we're more than happy to drop it to the 50 square feet. But that's the mere intent. To provide a little additional clarity.
It is almost right about 50.
Yeah. Is the width we used the pi, or 0.27?
That's what you have on your sheet here.
Yes, that's what Houston, and I can check that math. I don't know how many digits they used. If I rounded or used pi. But ultimately, so that signage is intended to, I got one more, well, I guess one more thing out you. Just for context. Is this signage is supposed to provide visibility from Sagamore Park. And so if you can see that corner will pop right out over Market West, which for context, you'll have in those pictures, you'll see the Vibe, a very large building, apartments down the way. They have a 40 square foot sign that's up in the corner that can be seen from Sagamore Parkway. You also have Market West, which has a strip center. Those tenants have 40 square feet of signage. We think we're generally within that, and given the unique circle size, it just provides an attractive sign. The actual words Oasis, those are, what's the specific number? I did more math, so take that for what it's worth. But the words Oasis are 18.5 inches by 75 inches, so that's only 9.63 square feet. Most of it is what we think is, an attractive, branded, unique sign. It's not intended to be lit internally, so it's not supposed to look like a gas station, but just a nice, unique circle sign that's Oasis. If you look at it, that side of the building is 28 feet wide. This sign is only 8 feet wide. So that's going to leave you 10 feet on each side, and it's 48 feet tall approximately. So we think it's a really small portion of the overall facade, and just provides an attractive wayfinding sign for that site that is located not on a corner and in the back behind Market West. Be happy to answer any specific questions, and certainly open to dropping the request to that specific sign size.
We'll let you know. Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition? Question for staff. Are there any requirements as far as squaring off the sign, or if you lowered the request to like 51 square feet, would that suffice?
Probably be best to round up in this case. But just to clarify, when we're calculating the sign area, we would do the appropriate math. The 64 square feet of the boxed area around it, staff would not count that as part of the signage.
So in essence, it would be the 50.27 square feet would be the sign that you would count.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So if he
So
wanted to.
yeah, 51, sorry.
So
that
if
is
he
rounded.
would lower it to 51, that would be more of a minimum
Right.
than the 64 square feet.
Yeah, we think so.
You want a motion on that? We'll see if
I would
it's,
request such amendment.
You would request
To reduce
such-
it to 51 square feet.
I'll go ahead and take a motion.
I'd move that we reduce the request to 51 square feet instead of the requested 64 square feet.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. So it's now limited to 61 square feet.
51.
Yeah, 51 square feet. What did I say?
You said 61.
Oh, 61, I'm sorry, 51, thank you. Any other questions?
I have one.
Go
How
ahead.
many other signage would be on the site for
Just that.
pathfinding? Will there be building numbers? I mean, those are
Yeah,
not
there'll be an
considered
address.
sign, but there will be
There'll be an
that as well.
address, and there
Okay.
would be, I know there's some things inside, but there'll be an address. That'll be the only sign that's oriented for off-site.
And none of those will say Oasis, just room numbers and building numbers, correct?
None of them would be, there might be something on a door, but none of it would be intended for off-site. Do you know, Jonathan? No other signage,
Okay.
just that one sign?
Thank you.
So, no other signage?
Did you have something, Ed?
No.
Okay. I do have a question, though, I mean, in general, you know, it's a residential property, it's not a destination location where people are going and searching like a commercial facility, and just wondering, you know, what the reason is for, you know, a larger sign for a residential property in general.
Sure.
What the justification is.
Sure, my understanding is that the request is to provide similar signage to the Vibe. That was the ultimate, that we thought that was an attractive wayfinding signage that was located there on the corner of that building. And this would provide similar. Residents, you know, would know, but they also will have guests and other visitors. So it's certainly not intended to be, you know, significant. I imagine the Wings, et cetera, and all the restaurants and stuff, you know, have more and larger and aggressive signage. But this was an attempt at a design that they thought was attractive and would simplify it with only one sign that was a reasonable request.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, we've got a ballot.
Six ballots cast, 6 in favor.
Variance has been granted. Is the next case ready to be heard?
both case number 5 and 8 are ready.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and take our next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2184, Kevin Kalp. Petitioner Kevin Kalp of Effective Images, represented by Steve Walters, who is a representative of Love's Truck Stop. The owner is seeking the following variances for a proposed high-rise freestanding sign. 1, to increase the maximum allowed height from 24 feet to 150 feet, UZO 4-8-6. 2, to increase the maximum allowed freestanding sign area from 60 square feet to 1,153.75 feet, UZO 4-8-6. 3, to decrease the required minimum setback from 150 feet, the proposed sign height, to 34 feet, UZO 4-8-6. And 4, to increase the maximum sign area for the sign lot from a previously granted variance BZA 2083 and allowing 368.04 feet to 1,521.79 feet, UZO 4-8-5. The 21.3062 acre property, zoned I-3, is located at the corner of East 200 North and Schuyler Avenue, commonly known as 2400 East 200 North, Fairfield 10, Southeast 23-4.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please.
Good evening, Christine Rail. So we are looking at Love's Gas Station, which is out Schuyler Avenue and 200 North, right near the 25 North and I-65 interchange. It's currently zoned I-3. There's just another detailed picture. Close-up, you can see all of the truck traffic that is already currently on the site. They definitely are very popular. So they are wanting to increase from a 24-foot sign to 150-foot, as was said, and the sign area from 60 square foot to 1,153.75 square foot, which that's pretty high in the air, and we don't currently have any other signs in the area. So if this is approved, where does it stop after that? Here's a more detailed site plan and some current pictures of the site. You can see the truck traffic, and I don't know if anybody frequents that area, but it definitely is heavily trafficked out there. There are signs on I-65, the blue destination signs that tells everybody going north and south where the Love's gas station is, the Hardee's. As you exit the interstate, it also has directional signs on the exit. And is this high-rise necessary? If we approve this, then, like I said, what's next? We're going to have more businesses asking for these signs, and right now, one is going to be, a distraction. We add 2 or 3, then it becomes an eyesore. So regarding this case, the Area Plan Commission unanimously voted that the sign ordinance be strictly adhered to, and on March 19th of 2025, determined that the variances requested are not use variances. So we strongly recommend this denial, and if you have any questions, please let us know.
Thank you. Petitioner, his or her representative.
My name is Steve Walters. I'm the real estate project manager for Love's. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Nathan. He helped us out of a little jam today, so that's good. We work with staff all over the United States, and some staff isn't as accommodating. So Nathan, thank you, sir. And the thing I would like to start with, today was the first day I've seen the staff comment, so there's a couple things I'd like to address. Christine just mentioned the I-65 blue signs, 100% correct, they're there. The challenge you have with the blue signs is, as you see those, there's usually multiple users on there. They're very small. The other thing that you have is there is a group called the United States Sign Council. The United States Sign Council is, and they're a heck of a lot smarter than me. They've done all the algorithms to say if you're on a road with this many lanes, with this much traffic, going this speed, you need signs this big. Well, those little blue signs, yeah, they help. But if say a diesel truck is in the far right lane and a vehicle is in the middle lane and you're driving, you're not going to see that blue sign. When I came here yesterday, I got off the off-ramp. There was a diesel truck parked on the off-ramp in front of the blue sign that she mentioned. So yes, they're there, but they're not as effective as what you would think they would be. If you could go back to that aerial, please, just for a second. Yeah, the one that, okay, I think that was the one that Christina mentioned. You could see all the heavy truck traffic. So no disrespect to Christine, because she's doing her job, I respect that. But we've operated truck stops for 65 years now. We have expectations of how good our business should be doing. And quite frankly, this store is underperforming by about 200,000 gallons of diesel a month. And what we have found, and we have stats to back this up, is in some cases we've had to open stores before the sign was manufactured and installed. And we've seen a bump in traffic coming to our stores after we've installed a high-rise. So what Christine may deem as busy, that's a fair opinion. You know, we look at that, we don't see anybody fueling. There's nobody fueling right now in that picture. You have 3 trucks that have fueled and pulled up, but nobody is fueling. At some of our stores, you'll see that there's 3 or 4 trucks pulled up after they've fueled. There's trucks fueling, and there's trucks behind them waiting. And that's kind of become our expectation of our stores to get the return on investment that we like to see. This store is below average in our system. So again, I respect the opinion, but from our standard, it is not a busy store. Christine also mentioned that multiple signs become a distraction. To some extent, I agree with that. But what she calls a distraction, we use that for safety. And again, the United States Sign Council has suggested that for a person to see a sign, make the decision they're going to utilize that business, and then make the maneuver to exit, there needs to be about 1/3 of a mile visibility for that. And with that 1/3 of a mile, then they go into how big it needs to be and all that good stuff. One of the comments in the staff report is that it can easily be seen from the ramp. No argument there. It can easily be seen from the ramp. But at that point, people are already getting off. It's the traffic, the travelers, the vacationers, the truck drivers that are going down the interstate that we want to see this sign and be able to see that it's a Love's, say, oh, I want to visit Love's, make a maneuver to get over to the exit ramp and get off. So that's just a couple things. She also mentioned that it can be seen from the ramp. Again, I agree, but only from the southbound side. You cannot see it from the ramp going northbound. And again, there is a blue sign there, but yesterday when I came here, there was a diesel truck parked in front of that blue sign, and had I not known where the store was, I'd had no idea where it was. One of the comments in here from the staff is that our existing sign is fully grown with trees, and yeah, that's an issue. I didn't initially do this store, but I don't know what happened, but looking at it, I do know that where they suggested moving the sign to, that's actually the low point of the property, and that's where our detention pond is. So you can't have a sign in a detention pond because the foundation won't hold up with the concrete and all those sort of things. Let's see, I talked about that. Go through these real fast. Okay, number 2 on the back, it said granting these variances will not be injurious to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community short of a catastrophic storm toppling the proposed high-rise sign. We all know there's tornadoes in Oklahoma, Indiana, all over Iowa, Florida. There's hurricanes. We had major flooding in Tennessee, North Carolina recently. We have never lost a pylon sign. We've had faces blown out from the wind, but the pylon sign has never fallen over. And the reason is because we go through a great detail of getting a foundation strong enough to hold that sign in the ground. Back to the issue of us doing this and not being busy. Going up in the air like that and having a foundation big enough to support it, it's going to cost anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000 a foot for us to build this sign. This is not something that we take lightly. We've had a gentleman that works in our sign company come out and float a helium balloon. He drives up and down the interstates. He says, no, 100 feet's too short, raises it to 120 or 160, whatever he does. Nope, 120 is too short. Okay, I'll move it up to 180. Nope, 180 is too tall, and he moves it back down, and that's how we got to 150. To give you an idea of how tall 150 feet is, the cell tower that's on the hill to the east of us is about 150 feet tall. Where our sign will be located, the top of our sign will still be shorter than that cell tower. The negative part for us is we are around a half a mile, depending on where you measure from, the city limits. We could not, we have city sewer, we have city utilities, but we could not annex into the city because there wasn't adjoining land to let us annex into the city. If we were annexed into the city, as you can see, one intersection to the south, they allow tall signs. So I get it, we're in the county, we're not in the city by a half mile, bad luck for Loves, I get that. But my point is, you go one intersection to the south, there's tall signs. You go one intersection to the north and drive back to the south, there's 3 cell towers between that intersection and this intersection that are as tall or taller than our sign will be. The concern is obviously setting a precedent. I totally agree. You don't ever want to do that. There's no other property like the piece of property we're on. We all know that there's only one piece of property. There's only one place your house sits. There's only one place my house sits. This piece of property is on an island, basically. We have a river to the west. We have a railroad trestle, a bridge, and a tracks to the south. We have a great big hill to the east. So there's nothing there that if we go up as high as we would like to go up, that if the sign somehow happened to fall, which again has never happened, it's not going to impact anybody else but us. To get the success we need and why we think this sign will help with the success and safety measures is we only need to get about 44 trucks more a day on average for a 30-day month to come off the interstate. And with the number of trucks that are up there, 44 should be pretty easy to hit. But there's a number of trucks up there that don't know we exist. Earlier, executive director talked about the parking. Yeah. He said that what's good for Lafayette would probably be good for the county. Fair enough. Again, in the city of Lafayette, just a little bit south of here, they allow tall signs. I totally get that the signage, that the sign code you have in a congested, dense area makes a lot of sense. I don't think it makes a lot of sense on a highway corridor like that, in that little area. In some areas that we've worked in, the county or city, they have special sign code, say for a quarter-mile circumference around the off-ramps to help the interstate traffic. Let me make sure that's all I have for you guys. Yep, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the petition?
Hi, my name is Barbara Knuckle. I live at 7026 East, 550 North. I am here as a resident of that area. I live out by Buck Creek. I am also the Secretary-Treasurer of Springvale Cemetery, which is down Schuyler Avenue. I just want to address a couple things. Based on what the gentleman was telling me, this station's been open 2 years, and it sounds like the planning was very poor on their part to start with. If they didn't have sufficient signage, they didn't know what they needed, and why now are they coming in and asking for changes? Is maybe it driven by the fact that there's going to be another truck stop there where Bob Fox's property is? And what are the restrictions going to be on that gas station? Are we going to have another big sign like that? He also talked about the cell towers. Yes, they're unsightly, but they're not lit up like a Christmas tree constantly. The traffic in that whole area is horrific. I go through there 3 or 4 times a day, every day, and I've never seen so many accidents, trucks cutting across, coming off. It's just, it's poorly planned, but it's, the cat's out of the bag on that. But if you look at what they're asking for the sign height to be increased 6 times what it is, the maximum freestanding sign area to be increased 19 times, the setback, they're asking for a 70% reduction, and for the maximum sign area for the sign lot, they're asking that to increase 4 times. I mean, I don't understand it. I'm sorry there aren't more people here. I know I've talked to people out in the area and they're not in favor of this. And I just don't see, it's a nice place. I've been in there a few times. I do think it would help a lot if they don't own the property, talk to the adjacent property owner and get those trees trimmed back some. Because if you are on Schuyler Avenue, you cannot see gas prices. Maybe you can off the interstate, but you definitely can't. But I still don't want to see them clear up in the air, because most time I'm not going to go in there because I don't want to fight with the truck traffic. And there have been a lot of accidents as I sit out there. So I would definitely hope that you deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
I'm Julie Roush, and I live on 4785 East 200 North, and I drive there every single day, several times. There is a lot of vehicles at that gas station every day. Whether or not they're getting gas, which is what he mentioned is the issue, that's another, I would think that might be a different problem because they certainly have the people there. And yes, it's also under my understanding is that another gas station is coming across the street, the northeast side, and that I don't want to see this sign war. On 25, anyway, it's, why would people really get off? You don't have hotels, you don't have a lot of restaurants, it's not a busy intersection. I think in time that might change, but I don't want to see the sign wars. I don't want to see the big signs. And I can't even imagine more traffic there either. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Hearing none, you've got a chance to rebut.
Thank you. The First Lady mentioned that we didn't get a high-rise the first time in our sign package. And the reason we didn't was because the sign code was so restrictive that we had to give up, I think, some building sign and stuff to even get the small pricer that we have out there. Again, it wasn't my project. The gentleman that did the project is now my boss, and he kind of filled me in on the history of what he had to go through to get that little bit of sign. We thought that it's not poor planning at all. It was something that we tried to do. We thought that we would be able, with billboards, with marketing, with that kind of stuff, to be able to pull the drivers and truck drivers and the vacationing families off the interstate, and it didn't work. So call it a failure, call it poor planning, whatever you want, but we tried to adhere to the sign code at that time, and it didn't work. The other thing that she mentioned was lighting. The lighting is, I understand that there's a perception that it's an issue, but we go through great details in doing a lighting matrix to make sure that the light does not bleed off of our property. We use LED lights, so they're not the super bright old fluorescent lights that you're used to seeing. So the lighting issue, yeah, you might be able to see the sign from somewhere, which is the whole purpose of a sign, is to be able to see it. But there's no homes around there close enough that it's going to be a distraction to anyone with the way the 150 feet lies. I've driven all the roads there, and knowing where the sign's going to be, that's not going to be an issue. As far as the setback issue that the nice lady mentioned, we've tried to put a sign. We tried 4 or 5 different locations. What you can't see on that aerial that was up earlier is underground. There is a plethora of utilities underground. So it definitely limits where we can put a sign. We tried multiple places to get that variance off the table because I don't like going and asking for one variance, more or less four. So I told him to do anything we can do to try to get that variance gone, and there's too many utilities underground to make it work. There was one location that we could put the sign, then you couldn't see it from the interstate. So it was kind of made it pointless to ask for the sign at that point. On the sign square footage, I noticed that on the apartment discussion earlier, that the gentleman asked for an amendment, and, that would be something that, if we need to make it a little bit smaller, if it was something that would be considered. If, I don't, you guys have this packet as well? If you turn to the second to the last page from the back, it shows our overall sign, what it would look like. Oh, thank you, appreciate that. One thing we could do is we could get rid of 200 square feet by taking out the love sign and leaving the LED heart. Our district manager for this location is here, and he was just telling me he was on a ride with some of the Love's family and some of the senior execs, and they're starting to believe, that they haven't been proven out yet, that our red LED heart is similar to the Nike swish, the McDonald's golden arches, those kind of things. So it might be a way where we could definitely cut that out and let this be a test drive to see if it does work. So that would be 200 square feet we could cut out. The speed cosign below the pricer, that's about 185 square feet. We could cut that out as well if giving us the height is something you guys would consider. The numerals, that's again based on the sign council, what their recommendation is. I know we have some stores that have smaller numerals than that, so we could do something there as well if it's something that would be considered for the overall height. And Nathan, help me out here if I'm wrong, but the overall height is one variance, correct? The maximum allowed freestanding sign area is a variance, so that's the one that includes the square footage, right?
Yeah, so there's two for the square footage. One is for just the freestanding sign allowance, and then one is for the entire lot allowance.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
All right. So the big hurdle, in my opinion, is if we could get some sort of tentative approval, conditional, I don't know how you guys worded earlier, maybe holding over something. If we knew we had the height, then we could work on the square footage and that kind of thing, if that's something that the council would look at. Again, this is a kind of, I didn't know what to expect coming here as far as the way the process was handled, but seeing how the gentleman handled the apartment thing with the amendment and that, I'm willing to listen to options.
Thank you. I guess, do we have any questions or comments or?
It may not have been you, but I remember when this project came before us the last time, and you did receive a variance for more signage than what we were allowing, and it was stated that you had agreements with some of your partners that they needed signage on the building, but that's all that you were going to need. You just needed to go ahead and do that. It almost seems like we went ahead and stepped up to the plate and gave you that signage last time. Now, 2 years later, you're asking for this. 2 years later, what else are we going to get into? This is a huge, from what you're allowed to do. You may have brought up in the city, but you're not in the city and you didn't pick that spot.
Right.
And this, what you're going for versus what we're allowing. And like I said, the last time you guys were in here, it's almost like you didn't ask for the tall sign because you wanted to get the building signs up first and then come back later and ask again. I don't know, this is just an extremely large ask. When one of the people said about the lights and it's lit up, you were saying your LED package doesn't really leave your lot area, but yet you want it to be seen out on the interstate. There are houses on the other side of the interstate up on the hill, that I'm sure would be able to see that sign package. So it's not like there's not any around there. There's a lot of concerns with going this high up and all these other auxiliary signs on there. That's my comment.
The thing I would say about the LED signs and the homes around there, yes, they will be able to see it, but it's similar to looking up at the stars. You can see the stars, but the stars don't shine through your bedroom window and cause you to lose sleep at night. So there's not a light pollution from the stars. There's not light pollution from our sign that gets off of our property and impedes on other people's property is what I meant by that.
I appreciate your opinion, but that doesn't look like a star.
I guess some of the comments that I have, one, this is the first major high-rise, huge sign proposal at this intersection. You've got a gas station catty corner from you. There's another truck stop going across the street. We're going to see, if we approve this, we're going to see 3 huge signs that are 150 foot tall, or whatever, how many feet tall they are, at this intersection. Right now, it's a clean intersection. I think one of the problems that Lafayette ran into was that they approved, it's a different board, but I think they would even have problems at this intersection approving huge signs like this. They may be willing to do a little bit more than we are, but if you were in the city, at 26 and South Street and I-65, somebody approved one sign, and then it's a commercial corridor and node there rather than just a node with 3 gas stations. And so it's a little bit different. It's kind of a nice, clean intersection as far as signs. If there's visibility problems where you can't see it through the trees, I could see something, slightly higher than what you have, or working with neighbors to try and trim the trees, or looking at a different location. But this is just an absolutely huge monstrosity, and just the height of it, I would hate to see that intersection, go this way.
And I respect your opinion on that, but again, the sign that we're asking for is not going to be as tall as a cell tower you can see there now. The cell tower that's there is up on top of that hill, so when you put our 150 down low, it's not as tall as that. The other thing I will say is the east side of the interstate, they don't have the issue of dealing with that large hill blocking the visibility of their signage. So you can see the Marathon from the interstate. Their sign would not need to be near that tall if they decided they wanted to put a sign up. You also mentioned the word first. Somebody's got to be first. So like I said, it's something that we feel like we need, and we respectfully come and ask. One of the ladies mentioned that, they don't have things, you guys don't have things yet here like hotels and such. Yeah, maybe they're coming, maybe they're not. If they come, they're going to need signs. It's that part of an interstate needs signage. For safety reasons, for visibility, for business reasons, to be successful, to feel good about coming, it's just a fact.
There's not a lot of room for development around that intersection, and the reason why you have 2 truck stops going in is that people have been able to fill in what is, the floodway fringe in order to get enough land in order to build these. So that's why it has not been developed over all of these years, or it would have been developed previously. So there's not a lot of land right at the interstate. There is maybe some down a little bit further that's already developed that could redevelop, but I don't see that happening in the near future.
Right, and again, in my opinion, the ones further down to the west, that's different because there's quite a bit of density down there. There's multiple stores side by side, so I get that would be a large clutter. But in this instance, even if you're talking about 4 signs, you're not going to end up with the issue that you have 1 mile south of here, or 1 exit south of here with all the hotel signs that are there. For what you just said, there's not a lot of opportunity for development.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah. When you were talking about this, you mentioned billboards.
Yes.
Coming and going. How far, north or south, where are the billboards? I try to stay off of it.
Do you know where the billboard? You just took over their store, so you may not know. This is Glenn, our district manager, but typically we try to have them about 30 miles out because, and I can't tell you there is one 30 miles out because sometimes billboards simply aren't available. Each state's different, but
Right.
typically in a normal instance, we'd like to have them 30 miles out at the farthest. And then if in a special instance, maybe bring one in, 3 miles in or so to kind of remind the drivers
Right.
that, hey, your kids need to use the restroom. There's one coming up. Just hang
Right.
on.
And that's kind of what I look for when I am driving, that, I need fuel, I need whatever. I kind of watch them, and I don't worry too much about them high signs. I worry about being able to get to the interchange that I need. And, a better thing, and billboards aren't easy to get either, I understand it.
Right.
But it would be better in this case than a high-rise sign.
Understood.
Any other questions, comments?
Just one more, and I think you've kind of maybe explained it, but I know like mature oak trees are about 70 feet tall or so, and I'm just wondering like how much above the current trees do you project for this sign to rise?
Let me see.
And that and like how far away do you expect the visibility? Like how many miles going north or south?
Oh, not miles. It would be like about a third of a mile.
About a third of a mile.
Yes, sir.
The
Yes,
visibility.
and that's like I said earlier, it's based on this algorithm that these geniuses came up with the United States Sign Council.
Yeah.
And they take in consideration the speed and the lanes and what kind of traffic.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we go by as a rule of thumb.
Okay, so the neighborhoods like south of the existing Loves, they would probably be able to see it?
I doubt it. I drove back there, and in some places, you can't even see the cell tower back there. And obviously, that's on a lot higher of a hill. Our side is lower. The railroad bridge is going to block a lot of it. There's oak trees on both sides, or I don't know if they're oak. There's trees on both sides that are fairly mature and tall.
Yeah.
So it would block a lot of that, yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions? If not, we have 4 ballots, so make sure you fill out the right one for the.
All right, thank you.
Too many pieces of paper.
All right, various, variance number 1, 6 ballots cast, 0 in favor, 6 against. Variance 2. Six ballots cast for variance 2, 0 in favor, 6 against. Variance 3. Variance 3, 6 ballots cast, 1 yes, 5 no. Variance 4. Variance 4 is 6 ballots cast, 1 yes, 5 noes.
So all 4 variances are denied. And we'll hear our next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2185 Max Convenience Stores LLC. Petitioner James W. Hollis of Max Convenience Stores LLC, represented by Kevin Riley of RTS Law, at the consent of owner Don Amsden, is requesting the following variances for a proposed gas station, proposed gasoline fuel service station. Number 1, to reduce the Type C buffer yard width from the required 30 feet to 19 feet, UZO 4-9-3. Number 2, to reduce the minimum rear setback from 40 feet to 19 feet, UZO 2-17-7. The 1.96 acre property, Zone GB, is located at the corner of US 52 West and North 300 West, commonly known as 3000 US 52 West, Wabash 3 Northeast 23-5.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please.
Okay, we've got gas station round 2 here. This property is out by the Meyer and the Menards, north of West Lafayette. This property actually had a rezone to GB from R1 that was approved with commitments not too long ago, if I'm remembering correctly. The commitments essentially prohibit certain uses that would otherwise be allowed, either by special exception or by right. Currently, the property is improved by a facility that's no longer in use. It used to be a gymnastics facility. Surrounding the property is quite a bit of floodplain. There are some residences there to the north, and then most of it is just farm field surrounding the property. Klondike Elementary is there to the south. There's a close-up of the property. It includes 3 total lots, is the area of the requested variances. We've got a proposed site plan here. Entry and exit proposed on both US 52 and Klondike. I don't think that both access points are controlled and permitted through NDOT. APC staff's preliminary communication with NDOT indicated driveway permits are unlikely to be approved at this location due to the proximity of a signalized intersection at 52 and Klondike. So just bear that in mind. The request is to reduce the buffer yard and then also to reduce the setback. So to the north end of the site, which would be the sort of back of house area for the proposed convenience store. Both requests are for 19 feet. The required setback is 40 feet from that property, and then the buffer yard is 30 foot in width requirement. I think petitioner plans to provide an alternative site plan that shows a little bit of an amended request so that the buffer yard, the proposed reduced buffer yard and setback doesn't extend the entire length of the property, but just exactly where it's needed. But I'll let them discuss that a bit more. Some pictures of the site. This is to the north side of the building. These 2 pictures were taken. And some additional pictures of the existing facility. So staff's opinion, staff is not supportive of this request. The reduction of the buffer yard area and the setback is particularly concerning because of what we presume to be back-of-house activities that happen at the back of a convenience store. There's a number of activities that happen. Those would be much closer to residences than they would otherwise be if the ordinance was met. So that is a concern, is the impact on specifically the residential properties to the north. So just looking here at the tests, the staff specifically thinks that the proposed variance does not meet the test number 3. Believe that the requested will be affected, the surrounding area will be affected in a substantially adverse manner. As I said, there's presumably back-of-house activities that need to happen. So even in that area, that 19-foot area requested, there would be activity, we're assuming. This is a situation that is common for properties in the same zoning district. While the property is a bit shallower, there seems to be a little bit of wiggle room that could be used that's not being used for some reason. And the hardship is self-imposed. Staff believes that the site plan could be maneuvered in such a way to meet the ordinance, and they're just choosing not to do that. So with that in mind, staff recommends denial on both variance 1 and variance 2. Thanks.
Thank you. Petitioner, his or her representative.
Good evening. Brad Neely with RTS Law, here representing the petitioner. As mentioned, we're requesting a reduction of the buffer yard requirement and reduction of the northern setback. Based on staff's comments, we would like to submit an alternative site plan to be added as a commitment to our request. We believe this addresses a lot of the concerns that were presented by the staff. I think that's been distributed to you guys. Okay. This plan is substantially similar to the original plan. The variances stay the same, just the footprint has been relocated to the west. And the main purpose for that is to reduce any impact to that adjacent residence as discussed. Per the alternative site plan, the size of the store is unchanged. Petitioner is still constructing the smallest model store within Circle K's program. Unfortunately, due to the shallowness of the lot, we still require setback and buffer yard variances as requested. We're further restricted by a significant amount of floodplain, which was already discussed on the site, which we believe is not common to other similar zoned properties. I would note that the buffer yard requested will be larger than what currently exists, with the setback being 19 feet and the current building being 10.4 feet away from the property line currently. And as mentioned, the new site plan shifts the building west away from the neighboring residential property. That will reduce any impact that it may have on the adjacent residential property and actually potentially improve the current condition due to that removal of that existing building. The new buffer yard is going to be fenced, landscaped. As included in the staff report, this project would move forward, could move forward without variances by shifting the building to the south, which would allow us to meet those buffer yard and setback requirements, but doing so would include a number of safety risks which may be prohibitive. If you reference that parking area, which is currently south of the building on that alternative site plan, to move the property south, that parking area would have to be moved to the west of the building. That's going to do a number of things. One, it's going to make the handicap spaces further away from the entrance, so they're going to have to travel further to get to that entrance. It's also going to remove that parking area from the front, which would currently act as more of a buffer yard from the driving area. So that driving area is going to be right up to the sidewalk, right up next to the entrance, which I think presents greater risks and dangers for pedestrians. It's also going to have a greater impact on the adjacent residents because it wouldn't be required to move that property to the west, which is as included in the alternative site plan. These variances, if approved, would result in a safer design than strict adherence to the ordinance would allow. The hardship's not self-imposed. Petitioners invested a significant amount of time and resources into the site design. The best design is limited based on the natural features of the site. Additionally, these variances are not being requested for economic gain. As we discussed, we could move forward with the current footprint, but doing so would include a number of safety issues that would, I think, hurt the community. We're requesting the minimum relief necessary. The variances would not negatively impact any adjacent properties. The variances would not be injurious to public health, safety, or welfare. We request your approval and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition to the petition?
I'm Doug Dunwoody. I'm the son of Joan Oakes, who currently resides at the backside of the now dance studio at 3608 North, 300 West. Her garage door currently, I don't know if you guys can pull up that picture of Harvey Lane there. Her garage door opens up to the backside of the dance studio. That's her little red building there. Yeah. So they mentioned that they're going to increase the buffer from what the current building is setting there, but the current building has absolutely no activity to the back of it. It actually works as a blockade to the 52 traffic. So it's really more of a benefit to us than a hindrance of it being that close to us. And like I said, there's no activity to the back of it. My mom's 85 years old. She'll be 86 this fall. She's lived in this house since the late 90s, 25 plus years. She, you know, the lights, the activity, the deliveries coming in there. I don't know if any of you guys would want your mothers to be, you know, accepted or have to accept that in their backyard or right next to it. We have so many things. I mean, you guys have all this stuff listed in here that tells you that this is not a good idea already. I don't even know why I need to be up here, but I'm going to speak on my mom's behalf. Item 3 of your ballot of items states a lot of it right there. That I mean, it's going to affect us in an adverse manner no matter what. It's like I said, it's a blank wall. It's a good buffer right now, and it won't be. We'll have people, you know, at I don't know what time all their deliveries come in, but there's going to be activity right outside my mom's house at all times. I don't know if anybody's done a car count, a traffic study, any of the other things that have been spoken about, you know, in regards or oppose of any of these other gas stations or variances that have been asked for tonight. I'd like to reference a lot of what the Purdue gal said, the second speaker for the Walmart, against the Walmart gas station, saying that there was like already 11 gas stations in West Lafayette. This is only one of 3 being brought to your guys' right now. I know there's one being built just south of on Klondike Road, and then these 2 possibly being new gas stations. The road on Taft Road is already barely wide enough for the traffic there. People walk into Menards and Meyer, they already walk down Taft Road, and that's already a narrow spot simply because there's a cemetery just to the back of where this picture's taken right here in the lower right corner of William. There's a cemetery right there. You can see the headstones there. So you're already landlocked against, you know, widening Taft Road and improving it without further affecting my mother. I mean, anything we look at in here is going to cause hardship towards my mother if you guys bring this closer. I mean, it just seems like it's a poor planned location for a gas station to begin with. They keep mentioning in all of the fact findings, the current lot depth does not allow for adequate parking, drive aisle widths, and safe vehicular and pedestrian movements. That in itself right there tells me that this isn't a good idea. The move for my 85-year-old mother, I mean, this has been stressing her out since this was brought to her attention, you know, a year ago that they were wanting to do this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just driving her nuts, keeping her up all night. My kids, her grandkids play right there. If they move the store, even if they move the store to the west, that just now takes, whatever this activity happening at the backside of the store, just further into the backyard of my mom's, where we do have some protection from traffic. Let's see.
You got about 30 seconds.
I got about 30 seconds. I could keep going.
That's why we got a time limit.
Yeah, exactly. I understand, but there's just so many red flags on this thing, and to bring it closer and to my mom's house is just, mind-boggling to me. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to the petition? Petitioner has a chance to rebut.
Yeah, so to address the homeowner's concerns, nothing here is to consider whether a gas station can be placed. The gas station can be placed without the variance. The thing is, without a variance, that would be 15 foot or 21 feet south from the current property line from that homeowner's backyard. With the variance, move 75 west of that property line, 75 feet west. So with this variance approved, any back of house activities is actually going to be further from this person's residence than it would be with no variances constructed. So that's everything that I had.
Thank you. Gary, did you have questions?
Yeah, probably a question for petitioner. You talked about if you could expand on the buffer yard, and you said it would be fenced. Well, are you planning a fence across the back of this property to create a buffer between the store and the neighboring houses?
Hi, Steve Harrison with McFarland Johnson. We're civil engineers for the site. Can you repeat that, please?
He mentioned in his presentation about a buffer yard. I don't know what he said about that, maybe enhanced, and it would be fenced. So I'm wondering if the back of this, if that's going to be fenced, and what kind of fence is that going to be?
Well, we could discuss that. So there will be the landscaping as required by the landscaping standards. I believe they're trees every 10-foot staggered, if I remember correctly. But we will add in a fence as well. The type we could discuss and see what would be acceptable. It would be, we could do a solid type fence instead of like an open wrought iron. That wouldn't really do much for sight. So we could do a solid type fence along the rear as well.
Go ahead.
Kind of a follow-up of it. Is there, I guess, first of all, is there any doors on the back of the convenience store?
There is one door as you look now, if you're looking at the front of the building, at the left, at the rear.
Okay. Because I guess my question about a buffer yard is how, if you're requesting a setback of 19 feet and you've got a 19-foot buffer yard, one, that's going to be on the north side of the building, how are you going to get trees to grow there that are going to serve as a buffer yard? And two, how are you going to open a door if you've got trees in the buffer yard? And two, do you have access to the private drive? And are you planning on using that for deliveries?
So there's granted access for the two western lots, so the middle lot and the west lot. The corner lot at North 300 West and US 52 does not have granted access to that alleyway. We're not showing any access from the rear off those two lots, so we don't plan on using that alleyway. I believe it's called Harvey Lane.
Harvey Lane, right.
Right.
So you do not plan on using it, so what's the back door for then?
The
And
back
what
door
occurs behind?
will be for, it's like an egress door.
Okay.
And it possibly could be used for deliveries as well, but they have the two doors to the left, on the left side of the building as well, that could also be used for that.
And another question is the traffic entrance on 300, is that in the current location as the
existing, yes.
As the existing?
Yep, we maintain that. Yep.
Okay. Because right now, if, for instance, going to Menards, you pull out, there are often people waiting at that stoplight.
Yeah.
And you can't make a left-hand turn into that gas station, or into the what the dance studio is now because there's not enough room.
Right.
And, if you've got semi-trucks delivering fuel, you're going to have problems getting in and out. And I think you're going to have problems getting a left in, left out on 52 that close to the stoplight as well. But that's not the variance, but that's just observations.
We understand that. We have had discussions with the city engineer of West Lafayette regarding the entrance on North 300 West. And we have a meeting this upcoming Friday with NDOT to discuss the 52.
I think you would probably need to add a lane to 300 West so that you can have a left turn, so you're not blocking traffic waiting for the stoplight, or you're going to back up traffic into across 52.
Yeah, that may be a possibility. We'll have to do the traffic impact study, which is a requirement that we'll need to do. We're just doing this one step at a time right now.
But you do plan, with this new site plan, and I haven't had a chance to look at it in detail, you do plan on installing the full buffer yard except for where the convenience store is,
Yeah, because we
correct?
need to do that buffer yard 30-foot wide, except for where we need to squeeze it down a little bit behind the store.
Anyone else have questions?
I have one. You mentioned that you have an upcoming meeting with NDOT.
Yes, it's Friday.
So if you're unable to secure the access, what is the future of this particular site? Isn't this premature that you are asking us?
Well, it was kind of hard to decide which one to go through first. Because if we can't get the rezone, then we can't build. If we can't get the access, we can't build. So we just chose what came first, and the zoning meeting came first before the NDOT meeting. So we need both. We just got to do one at a time.
So the access that you show on the site plan,
Yes.
if this is approved today, there is no way you can change it without coming back and getting additional request from this particular board.
For the access, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's very likely
access
that
we
NDOT
placed-
may dictate that.
Yep,
Right.
and we understand that in the access we placed as far away from the intersection as we possibly could with maintaining maneuverability, onto the.
Right, but for
neighboring roads.
instance, if you have to build another lane on 300, up to your entrance, that changes the site plan. Does that require them to come back before us? So in essence, I think this is premature until you have access granted.
Sorry, Steve, what exactly was the question?
If they're required, for instance, to put in a turn lane, in other words, an additional lane from 52, up to at least their entrance, that's going to change their site plan.
It could potentially,
Which
yeah.
would mean that they would probably have to come back before this board for the variance, because the variance is tied to the site plan, correct?
Right, yeah, and on that note, I'd like to clarify, in conversation that we had with the petitioner prior, this new site plan, there's been discussion about offering it as a commitment. So this new site plan would replace the site plan that was proposed when the case was filed. But that has to be, I think there has to be a motion to do that.
Well, I think if they submit a new site plan, then I think that's what we're talking about. So I don't know that we need a motion, do we?
Well,
I mean, it doesn't hurt, but.
Yeah, I think for the record, and just to make it clear with council that because we have this new site plan and all the discussions about where the building is and how far forward you are, all those things, to me, indicate that this site plan is very much a commitment, that if this site plan changes in any substantial way, that the variances that are granted, if they are no longer valid, because the site plan is the reason that they're giving the variances they give if they end up giving variances. So, would you agree with me for the record that if this site plan changes substantially, that would call for a change in the future? You'd have to repetition this board to change the variances.
Yeah, I would agree if there's any substantial change.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the other option is if you're meeting with NDOT you said this Friday?
Yes, yes. This
I mean, we can always continue the case, and then if something, to the next month or 2 months, and then we can, hear this again based on any site plan changes that might come out of it. If you get approval from NDOT.
Then we won't have to refile.
Then you wouldn't have to
No
refile
refile.
and pay another fee to
Sure.
do that.
I think we did it talk to Jim. Do it in 2 months, basically.
Yeah, one or up to 2 months per continuance. So if you feel like you need 2 months or a month, you could trigger continuance now and we'll call it a night.
Gary, did you have
Yeah,
something?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
30 seconds.
Yeah, well, for myself, I can consider these variances on this site plan. I mean, I think we leave transportation and entrances to somebody else. I'm not here to design that. Somebody else will do
Right.
that. I'm just looking at these setbacks, the buffer yards, and they can do what they want, but I can make a decision tonight on that. If something changes, then, they'll have to deal with that.
Right,
Now, if we-
it's up to them taking the risk of
Right.
whether or not something changes or not.
So on the setbacks, it looks like if we reduce the buffer yard, we reduce the rear setback, those are setback variances. If they were just to come back and change the location of the entrance, because somebody dictates it to them, which is likely, it's a possibility, those variances would not continue?
Yeah, my understanding would be that's exactly the word substantial. If they don't change the variances, if they have no bearing on the variances, then the variances don't need to change.
Or they would
It's
carry
when-
on?
Yeah, for example, you change the entrance and that means that you're gonna have to move this building. Well, the building's set, and part of their argument is the building's there because it gives an advantage to the neighbor, not a disadvantage. So if by getting some ruling from the NDOT or the county that they have to change things, if that changes that building or other
They would have to do
substantial
that,
things,
but-
then they have to come back. But if it doesn't affect it, I
Okay.
agree with you.
If it doesn't affect the variances, so we could
So
vote
we
on the
could-
variances tonight. If the driveway changes because for whatever reason, it doesn't affect the variances that
Right.
we may consider. Okay.
Are you comfortable with that, as staff? Knowing that there is a decision that needs to be made, and that decision is, did the change that was made by, just call it NDOT or whoever, if the change affects those variances that are given, then they would have to come back. If they don't have a substantial impact on them, then nobody cares. And what has passed is as good as gold because it had no impact. Are you comfortable with that as a litmus test that you are going to have to at least be the first line of decision-making?
Based on what we consider to be like substantial changes, for instance, if the driveway cut along Klondike Road has to move further north away from the intersection, for example, that'll cut into the buffer yard.
Yeah.
Right? So that would be a
Change the buffer
substantial.
yard.
They would need a variance, yeah.
That'll be a
issue.
substantial change.
Yeah, but if
Right.
they need to move 5 feet or 10
Okay.
feet, and does not get into the buffer yard?
Right, yeah, so if it doesn't affect the variances or the location of the building, I would say doesn't rise to that standard. then.
Okay.
It's reasonable.
Are you following?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So, next, if the guy that spoke, I'd had a question for him about the fence. So I just throw that on the table. I just think we
Right.
can
Yeah.
consider those tonight. I want to
Yeah.
leave
Oh,
other
I'm
jobs
fine
to
with
other
that.
people.
Yeah.
As they develop, there's a lot
That's
of
how-
hurdles to jump, and you don't jump them all at one time. You got to run, and they may hit a roadblock, and it won't work for them. We're just one. I do, when he's done. He's talking. Yeah, I had a question for Doug, please.
I'm sorry.
Have you listened to the conversation, and they, concerned about behind, your property, which I think is on the eastern corner, right next to Taft Road?
Yes.
Okay. If they're proposing a fence, and I think it's behind the building is actually further to the west and not directly behind us, do you have an opinion or a preference on a fence behind their property line?
Obviously, a fence would solve a lot of problems. I could be, I don't want anything closer, but I'm a Lafayette fireman too. And behind gas stations and in these buffer zones is where we find overdoses, needles, the undesirable part that comes around these things. That's where we pick them up at. So a fence keeping those people, those activities, and not to say this particular one will have those activities, that's just typically where we go. A fence would keep a lot of that from crossing over.
That's good input to hear from you. So there's an argument both ways. I'm thinking maybe a solid fence, but then that makes it worse.
Yeah.
Because now you've created a place for people.
For them
But if you put a chain link fence where people can't egress back and forth.
Even though it's not very attractive, but it's whatever, the lesser of the two evils is what we're looking for. We would, people not crossing into our property would probably be,
A nice
beneficial.
6-foot chain link fence to
Yeah.
keep people from wandering to the north with concertina wire.
Yeah, I mean, something to deter them, because, I see the activities that happen back in my territory of Lafayette it sees it more than what some others do, so. And this territory, West Lafayette, is obviously not what I work in, but it is typical. So,
I appreciate that input, because I was thinking solid, but it may be better to be chain link, where you don't create.
yeah, the solid may just keep it on their property though, too. It just gives them a hidden spot to do it in, so.
Well, that's the problem. Now you
Yeah.
got a hidden spot opposed to more
Yeah.
visible and.
That's just
Can't set up
typically
camping
where
there.
some of that activity happens, where they change it. I mean, even at the Social Security office, I mean, we go to overdoses right there because it's a place they can meet, it's a place they get their money, it's a place that,
Oh, boy.
so, so that's where my mind is setting when these things are on.
Thank you.
Can I address something with the driveway moving? Just real quick.
Sure.
You move it farther north, it's gonna impede us being able to see coming out of. And I think everybody recognizes that. I just wanted to say it because, I mean, you have a fuel truck sitting there trying to get through traffic, and he sits there for a prolonged amount of time. Makes it harder to get out of Harvey Lane. So, but thank you for your time.
Good point, but those are kind of dictated by other
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
I think that's why they're asking for the other entrance, so they can egress in and out.
Egress out that way, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to ask the petitioner what they think about fencing, if they would take into consideration what the neighbor said, if there was some kind of.
Yeah, I don't think that I'm entirely clear what we decided would be better, whether it would be chain link or whether it would be solid. I think we were open to either.
Yeah.
So.
From what I heard, I almost thought chain link would be better, not to create a space back there that would be non-visible.
That's
And-
what I understood as well. So,
Yeah.
we'd be more than happy to put a 6-foot chain link fence in there. We won't do the barbed wire or anything on top of it, though.
Okay, so would we think that that would kind of cover the entire site across the back? And that, we haven't heard from the other neighbors, but, I mean, if you don't do it the entire site, you walk 10 feet and you're around the back. What's your thoughts about
Yeah,
that?
we could extend it past the building, from the corner past the building.
Okay.
Do we want a commitment?
Well, I'd have to have a little more specificity about how far that chain link fence needs to go. Obviously, you get next to the corner and you have some visibility issues that you may want to hold that back for sight lines. But
We could run it across the entire back of the property if that's preferred, the chain link fence, 6 foot high, yeah. It's on one of the drawings here.
I would say just to back across the, I'll
Across
make,
the
I'll
back
make
of
a
the
motion,
property.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
That's good enough, I think.
I will move to add a
There's
commitment
couple of them.
to put a 6-foot fence, whether it's chain link or something, and then, where you can't pass through.
Yeah.
Fence along the back of the property, and then held back from Taft Road, whatever they dictate to you for sight distances.
Sure.
Typically don't want to run that right up to the road.
Right.
So
Right.
I'd make that motion to add that as a commitment.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Any other comments, concerns, questions? Not, we've got a ballot.
We have 2 ballots.
Sorry, we have 2 ballots, sorry, yeah.
We good on the commitment? On variance 1, there were 6 ballots cast, 5 in favor, 1 against. On variance number 2, there were 6 ballots cast, 5 in favor, 1 against.
Variances are granted. And we'll hear the last case, please.
Steve, just 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We'll break for 2 minutes.
Two minutes. All right, you want to get?
You're right. This will be short and sweet. I ain't talking much. And everybody cleared out, so there's probably.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You guys ready? Oops. Where'd it go? Why isn't it moving? Or do I need to- You guys ready? Oh, sorry. Oh. I missed it.
I can stay till, okay. By 7:40 or 8:40. I gotta pick my daughter up at 9. I definitely go on, but if it does, I'll just.
Okay, we're ready.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2187 Horvath Towers. Petitioner Horvath Towers, represented by Jamie Matthew of Kimley Horn, and at the consent of owner Breezy Farms LLC, is requesting a special exception to allow for a proposed primary communications tower operating 24 hours per day, 7 days per week, in a 100 by 100-foot easement in an A zone. The 71.94 acre property is located at the corner of North 500 East and Pretty Prairie Road, Tippecanoe 13, Southeast, 24-4, UZO 3-2.
Second.
Motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please.
Okay, yes, requesting a special exception for a cell tower located on Pretty Prairie Road, just outside of Battleground and near 500 East. Let's see, it's a 165-foot self-supporting tower with the 10-foot lightning rod, make 155 foot, but then the 10-foot lightning rod, operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Pretty, basic. I think we all need cell towers, so we all want want our cell phones to work properly. It would not negatively impact the county residents and will improve their cellular coverage to the surrounding area and improve emergency services to the community. Oh, sorry, here's some more pictures. Up close, it's just that little corner section of the Zoned A, and it's just currently a farm field. There's a couple, the R3 there. This is up close of the site. It's going to have a wooden fence around it, small drive, another one. And then here's what it looks like right now. Currently, there's just farm ground. So we would like to approve. APC recommends approval, sorry. And we will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Petitioner, his or her representative.
Thank you, members of the board. My name is Jason Riggs. I'm here on behalf of Kimley Horn and Horvath Towers. I think I was the only one recommended for approval tonight, and there's nobody here. So in the interest of time, we are doing looking to do a tower, provide reliable service to this area, and I'll answer any questions that you have.
Seeing that there's nobody else in the audience, I'm not going to ask for speaking opposed or for or against. Any questions for the petitioner?
No.
Hearing none, we have a ballot.
Yeah.
Six ballots cast, 6 in favor.
Special exception has been granted. Administrative matters. None?
None.
Unless any member has an objection, the chair will order the findings of each member casting a vote for the majority decision of the board to be the collective findings of the board in support of the decision of the board. Hearing none, it is so ordered, and I'll take the last motion.
I move to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Similar projects coming along. We will see those come.
So the courthouse is.
This conference is no longer being recorded.